Welcome to an all-new episode of Excel TV where we help you excel your skills, your business, your career, and your life. We're all about helping you save time and save money. Now look, most of my episodes are really about Excel tips, right? But I actually want to talk to you about something that that is just as important, let's say, as anything else, and that's how to get a job. I think there's a lot of tips out there on how to use Excel. God knows we've done a lot of them, but there haven't been a lot on how to help you land a role as a data scientist or an analytics or as a business intelligence developer or as a project manager. Stay to the end, because at the end of this video there is a link that I'm going to have for you that's going to have a guide that's going to talk about a lot of this stuff that we talk about in this video. But also I would recommend, look, you could skip to the end, but I'd recommend watching the whole video because I'm going to give you my thoughts, and it's going to include things that aren't in the guide. So with all that being said, welcome to an all-new episode of Excel TV. So let me tell you about my expertise in helping people land jobs. I have, over the last several years, helped a lot of different people get jobs. So I helped a friend get a prestigious internship working with a congressman. I've helped friends land roles as logistics coordinator. I helped people land jobs at consultancies, finance jobs, more. I've recommended a lot of people for a lot of different positions. I've helped a lot of people, looked at a lot of resumes. I helped my ex I helped her with her resume when she applied for a PhD position in theology. So that's something that's even totally foreign to me. But the cool thing is that a lot of this can be reduced down to the same principles, and I want to share them with you because I really believe that I can help you. So look, today's topic is really more geared towards analysts, data scientists, business intelligence roles, finance roles, things that exist in the business and tech space, so business analysts, things like that. However, if you've come to this video randomly, I would suggest that you stay tuned, because actually the advice I'm going to give is something that you can adapt in your own work. So here is the people I think that I can help, all right? So let's say you are a junior analyst and you just started and you just feel overwhelmed, right? Because there's so many different ways you could take your career, and how do you even present that on paper, right? Because you're competing against people who've gotten certifications and master's degrees and have gone to boot camps. You can differentiate yourself. Stay tuned, because this is for you. If you come from a non-traditional background, I actually do come from a somewhat non-traditional background. So let's say you come from a pure business background, but even that, if you come from creative writing, you come from marketing, you come from artistic background, you come from a healthcare background. I know a lot of nurses actually need to move into more evidence-based, data-driven roles. I can help you with that. If you are an IT career vet, you've been doing this for 30 or 40 years, you've seen this IT space change, and now it's being a lot more focused on data and data analysis and analytics. I can help you with that. Chances are you've actually already done that kind of work. It's really just about how to message that. And then finally, if you are an H-1 visa holder, all right, and you are looking for a permanent position, this is a bigger challenge, but actually I can help you with that too. So what I'm going to tell you here is that making or getting hired, it's not just about making a resume or acing the interview. It's really about you. You need to show that you're indispensable to the people you are applying to. And I'm going to tell you how to do that, or at least give you some advice on how to do that. I think it's a much broader problem than what I can give you here, but I think that most of us are in some capacity analysts, designers, things like that. So if we can think how we think on the job, and we can think about how we do that with our resume and when we apply for jobs, we can really help ourselves out considerably. So I'm only going to tell you to be good at what you're probably already good at. The real thing is about bringing it out of yourself and really putting it in paper and really putting it in an interview and really just using it to your advantage. Now let me tell you who this is not for, all right? If you're looking to freelance, sorry, this video is not for you. And if you're looking to land contract roles, that's just a whole different animal. It's a lower paying animal, but it's something that if you want to get into, maybe I'll do a video about that later. But for now, if you fit the criteria of the people who this video is for, stay tuned, because we're going to get right into it. So look, before I go forward with anything else, I want to really address this type of thinking that a lot of people might have. So they might look at me and say, look, you have Excel TV, you have your books, there's a reason why it might be easier for you. But, it wasn't always this way. I crafted what the career I wanted to give me those sorts of things. But if you think you can't do it, You're wrong. I went to a university that was like, I went to Wright State, which is a good university. I don't want to insult it on here, but it's not exactly an Ivy League university. It really is a commuter school for people who are working in Dayton, Ohio. And I failed multiple classes. I had to take linear algebra multiple times. Don't ask me what an eigenvector is. But the first role I landed right out of school, actually before I was out of school, was for $70,000 a year, and it was for Booz Allen Hamilton. And I've only really made more money since then. In fact, I recently turned down a role that was in the three figures that was significantly more than that. And that is a lot about my presence, not just online, Excel TV, things like that. No, they just looked at my resume. They just looked at me as a candidate. So you can get there, but you have to think about these things differently. And you have to really put a little more, I don't even want to say a little more, because you probably already have the skills to do this. It's really just about bringing them out. But I want to just stress this here. You know, we say this on Excel TV, we're professionals, all right? So, you know, I'm just a professional just like you are. And I don't think that there's anything really different between us. So I think if I can do it, you absolutely can do it. Maybe you can even do it better. So let's talk about what's required. I'm going to break it down for you. So I've been so daring as to reduce this down to 4 tips, all right? So the first is you need to be bold and confident, right? You need to differentiate yourself. You need to have a killer resume. Getting a killer resume is really about iteration, which we'll get to in a second. You need to ace your interview, and finally, you need to continue to iterate. So I'm going to break all of these down, but what I want to say about the first 3, so being bold and confident, that's really just believing in yourself, having a killer resume, and acing the interview. All of these are just gates, right? So the first gate is really to believe in yourself. The second gate is to put together a resume. And if you're struggling with it, my advice is just get something out there. I'm going to give you some tips that's going to help you do just that. You need to do very well at the interview. So an interview is very important to build rapport. It's very important that you answer specific questions accurately. And it's also very important that you just be yourself, come to it authentically and honestly. And then finally, if you go through all those stages and you're not being called back for interviews, or you're making it to the final round interview, but you're not being made an offer, you need to iterate. What does that mean? Well, if you're a designer, or if you're a programmer, or if you're a coder, or if you're someone who's run projects, you know that you try and you fail, and then you take what works and you keep trying. So it's this continual process. And when I say iterate, I don't mean just after you get the job. You need to keep your resume living, and you need to constantly be improving it so that when you are ready to move, you're just ready to go, and you're not just convincing yourself on your resume, this is who you are. It's ready to move when you are. So let's break these down and get into them. So let's talk about what it means to be bold and to differentiate yourself. So some of this is personal, right? If you don't believe in yourself, that's going to come across in your resume. That's going to come across in your interview. So you really need to take stock of what you're good at. That might just mean writing down a list of your skills and qualities. And a lot of that can actually then funnel into your resume. But you also need to do things that are going to differentiate yourself. So what does that mean? Well, here's just an easy tip. It's one that a lot of people don't do, and it's one that I think a lot of people are hesitant to do. So if this isn't for you, I get it, but I think it works, okay? So after you've applied to a position, let's say it's Taleo or some other type of big jobs platform, usually if it's a big jobs platform, there's a talent manager who's in charge of that role. So one thing is, some of these roles will tell you who the talent manager is. If you know someone who works there, you can have them log in and we'll tell them who it is. And they can tell you. And then once you know, you can go look for them on LinkedIn, connect with them. Don't send anything smarmy or arrogant. Just say, hey, look, I applied for this role. Give them the job ID. I'm really excited to hear about this position. Let me know if you have any questions about my application. So if you don't have a friend who works at the company, the easiest thing to do is to go to LinkedIn, type in the company name, type in talent manager, or just Google it. Usually it'll come up. Sometimes it'll come up on the website, but just do a little research. Find out if there's someone there who could actually look at your resume. It doesn't have to be the HR person. You can also look for the business department manager. So this works at big companies, but at smaller companies, it's even easier often to find the person in charge of that. Again, the important thing here is not to assume you got the job, not to assume that just because you reached out to them that they're going to look at your resume. You're just going to give them a little tip that you send it in, and that's going to make them go and take a look at that. So that's very important, because if you have 30 resumes in a pile and they have to look through all of them, you've just shot yourself to the first place. So that's one way to be bold. The other thing is you need to fill out your LinkedIn, and your LinkedIn needs to have all the best stuff on it, because the moment you apply, someone's going to Google you. So you need to make sure that you are Googleable, and the stuff on your LinkedIn really needs to help you shine through. Following that tip on being bold, what I really want you to do is start thinking about who you are and what you bring. So if you're an analyst, you're a data scientist, or you're a designer, so you come from a creative background, you're probably one of these things. Or if you have an IT background, you're a process person. I want you to start thinking about the work you're doing through that process. So in part of being bold, all right, I want you to go through your resume as that kind of person. So if you're an analyst, how do you solve the problem of showing the most valuable stuff in the shortest period of time? If you're a designer, how do you design a resume that's going to really catch someone's attention? If you're a process person, how do you make it such that you can spend the least amount of time but get the most value out of it? When you start thinking like your job, like your expertise, automatically the work that you produce is going to show that. And when someone looks at it, they're going to be like, wow, this person is who we want for this role. Now, that's more of abstract advice. Here's a little more tangible advice. So the first thing is, on your resume, you're going to have your name, right? So after that, imagine a comma, and then imagine a 2 to 3 word title based off of what I've just told you, right? So on some of my resumes, and I usually have multiple ones in case I'm applying for different roles, and even some of my consulting roles, they like to see a resume. So on some of them, I say I'm a data science leader. Some of them, I'm a data-driven management consultant. I just helped someone out. It was, I think I made them strategic operations leader. So I want you to think carefully about how you can describe yourself. And here's a really cool tip, okay? So if you are applying for a job that's like business intelligence developer, right? Take that title. If you think, assuming that you are that person, don't lie about this, but if you are that person, take the title that they're looking for and adapt it, right? Put it on the top of your resume. Business intelligence leader, business intelligence developer. If you are a data analyst, right? At a company, that doesn't sound particularly sexy, but what you can do is you can combine what you're interested in or the role. So marketing strategy, data analyst, data-driven marketer, something like that. Something that's going to catch the attention, that aligns with the job that you're applying for. There is a tip, though. There's a way that a lot of people kind of get caught, because there's a trap here, right? So if you say something like aspiring data scientist or like data enthusiast, yuck, I don't like those, all right? So I've hired a lot of people. I see resumes with that. I think, what? Like, if you are studying data science, you can call yourself a data scientist. And by the way, even if your last job didn't call you a data scientist, if you are doing things like neural networks, if you're doing nearest neighbor algorithms, if you're doing things that qualify as data mining or data science, you are allowed to call yourself a data scientist. You don't have to call yourself an aspiring data scientist. I wouldn't want to hire someone who's aspiring for something. I want to hire someone who is the thing for the role that I'm looking for. My next bit of advice is to start your resume with an executive summary. So first of all, please don't put an objective section. That's so 90s, all right? Please don't do that. That will immediately make someone like me in the roles I was hiring for think, huh? We all know your objective is to apply for the job. What I am most interested in is if you can tell me quickly what it is you do and why I should hire you and why you are indispensable. So start off with an executive summary. I'm going to show you a sample executive summary on the screen. This is an adaptation of one I've used. It's actually, I've broken it up into sections. I've tried to consolidate it here to kind of give you an idea. And alternatively, if you don't have that kind of background, if you're just starting out, we'll just use 2 or 3 sentences just to describe who you are and what you're good at. Here's an example one that I helped my friend come up with. Okay, and finally for your resume, and this is something that every resume book has talked about. There's tons of advice on Google about this, but you need to use impact statements. So one thing is I was helping someone with their resume very recently, and they were the first analyst to be hired in the organization they're working for. So they actually even created that role. So I think they just had a bullet point that was like, became the first analyst. Well, we can take that bullet point and we can make it a lot more interesting, right? So I would say something, well, first of all, I would move it to the top in that job list, be the first thing that they saw, because that's pretty significant. So what I would do is I would include the fact that I created that role. That's pretty significant because that shows that you sort of spearheaded the implementation of that role and that you created it for yourself. I mean, it's a very significant sense of creativity. So again, especially if you have a creative background, you want that to shine through. The second thing is, how big was the organization? The first person like to support an organization of 70 people across 3 departments, like put a little impact in it, something that will help the person look at it, sink their teeth into it. Now, if you're an analyst, this is where you have a time to shine, because if you're a data person, well, just look at the data and present it that way. You already know how to do this. So I know we're afraid to do that on the resume, but don't be, because the more you show them that you're doing the job within the resume, the more you're going to look like a good fit for it. So the next tip here is to ace the interview. Now, there's a lot that can be said about interviews. I could do a whole series on that. I might. We'll see. We'll see the time that I have. But I think I can give you a few tips that are going to help you now. One tip I'm going to give you that is not in the guidebook, so I'm just going to bring it up here because I'm thinking about it, is that you need to dress for the interview in the way that they want to see you. So I think the old advice would always be to wear a suit. You know, it can depend, right? So I usually say, like, dress for the level of what you'd be working at every day casually, plus just a little bit more. Okay, so if you are going to be hired by a more casual work atmosphere, you know, you can come in wearing slacks, a button-up, tucked in, and then if you want to just add something, you can add a blazer. Great places for clothing for that are Gap Outlet. So I always hit outlet stores. Don't spend a whole lot of money if you don't have to. If you're going to work for like a finance company, a hedge fund, you probably should show up wearing a suit. Again, Brooks Brothers Outlet, Charles Turwitt Outlet. Good idea to go get yourself sized for that. So if you're thinking, oh, that's a lot of money, just consider it like this. Like, look, if you're going to get a role that's like $70,000 or even $50,000, just depending on where you live, I don't want to say, like, you know, be a little less focused on the money at this point. But if you're going to get a role that's going to make you a lot of money, well, this is just an investment that's going to pay back multiplied several times over. So it's a good idea to really invest in yourself. If it's a casual workplace, nice, like super casual, nice slacks, nice sneakers that are new. So Adidas has really interesting sneakers that I really like. A button-up is good, a sweater, something like that, maybe a cardigan. This advice, by the way, is almost particularly for men. So, you know, it's that I'm giving you. I think that it's a little harder for. I think it's a little different for women, and I'm probably not qualified to speak to that. So feel free to search that sort of stuff, but also to adapt what I'm giving to you. All right. So some of the other things that I want to give you, some of the other major mistakes that people make in interviews. So usually the first person you talk to in an interview, so it's usually an HR person, it might be another headhunter from a different company. The first thing that they're really going to ask you, maybe not as the first question, usually it's like the last question on the first discussion, is salary. So don't you bring up salary, and if they ask you what you want to make, take a breath. Do not give them a specific answer yet, because first of all, you don't know what the job entails. So if it's going to be a lot more work than you expect, I think that you should command a higher salary for that. But most importantly, a lot of people get themselves in trouble because at best they set a target that's too low, and then they just basically give away their hand to the person interviewing them to say, oh, well, that's what this person can expect. But I think more importantly, what you want to show here is that you don't care about money yet, because really you don't. What you want to do is you want to find out if the job is going to be good, if the work is challenging, if it's like a promotion from your last job. So don't apply laterally. You should always be looking for a promotion if you're changing jobs. And also, you know, if it's just a right fit, if you could see yourself coming in every day. So you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. In consulting, when I talk to people about a project, I make sure that I can help them out and there's a good fit. The last thing we talk about is salary, and it needs to be the last thing that you talk about too. Now, if they press, and sometimes they will, they'll say, okay, but, you know, kind of give me an idea. The reason they're doing this is because they don't want you to bring out some obscene number and then get to the end of this and realize, oh, we can't do that. So assuming that you aren't going to do some obscene number, what you can do is you can say, well, this is what I made at my last job. But you must say these things. So if someone says, well, what's your salary? the first thing you should respond with is, we can talk about salary when we get there, but right now I'm most interested in whether this role is the right fit, whether I can actually, whether I can bring value to your organization. These are the things I'm looking for. I believe you are like a company that is one that I think, we could work together. And I firmly believe that you will offer me a competitive salary at the end of this. So that's the first thing you should say. Now, sometimes, not always, the person will come back and say, okay, but can you give me an idea? So what you say is, here's what I was making before. I see this job as a promotion from my other work, and, really depending on the kind of work I see and where I'm placed and what I'll be doing, I think that's going to help shape what the salary is in my mind. I do expect to be paid more than I was previously, only because I think that this job requires more responsibility. That's it. That's all you got to say. You do that, they're going to come back to you with a good offer. All right, so the next question that people are often asked is, why do you want to work here? This is a major, major trap, okay? So here's what you should not do. Don't come up with sycophantic answers. Oh, I really want to work here because your company's so great, blah, blah, blah. Do a little bit of homework on that. And here's a really good time to let your background shine. So if you come from a creative background, and let's say you're applying to a retail company, right? You're applying, you're applying to Express, like another clothing company, or let's say Target, place that takes their expression of themselves very seriously. So if you have a creative background, you're getting into a data role, this is the moment to say, well, I come from this creative background. I've written a lot. I really like art, and I really like design. And so I really like how your company appreciates design. It's not all just about the data with you. And I think that given that I have both the design side and the data side, I can really help you out. That's all you need to say. Here's another one that people often ask. Why are you leaving your last position? Okay, again, this type of question is a trap. Now, here's what I want you to think about. You can answer this honestly. And in fact, you should answer it honestly. But there is a way to answer it honestly, and there's a way to answer it poorly. So if you didn't like your last role, it's worth, at least even during this video, hit pause, pull out a notepad, talk about the things you don't like. Now, you may have had a toxic manager. We're going to put that one aside for a second, because usually as a result of that, you weren't given enough authority, you weren't given enough autonomy, they didn't move fast. Maybe you're just sick of the role. These are all things that are okay to feel. Now, the thing is, you need to message that, okay? So if they ask, why are you leaving your last role? You just say, look, I was hired on to do this, and I think I did a really good job. But now that I've really reached the point in my skills where I'm looking for a new challenge, and I'm not really sure that they have like a place for me, another step for me to go up. I'm really looking to expand my career and to tackle new things. So let's make that a little bit more concretely. I'm just going to actually read what I wrote down here. I worked with a lot of small businesses, so this is the example I used. I said, I liked my old company, but it's a growing small business, and there's less structure around my role. I'm ready to work somewhere that has a built-out analytics program using the latest technology. I see this job as kind of a promotion from what I was doing before, and I'm ready to tackle greater challenges. And I think your company, I looked online, I saw that you had tons of analytics roles. I think your company really takes it seriously, and I think this is a place that I want to work and where I would thrive. So just take it and kind of spin it into how you're going to help them. If you had a toxic boss, if you can't come up with anything good to say, I would challenge you on that. I think that you probably can. But if you did have a toxic boss and you can't come up with good things to say, there's a super easy answer that everyone will accept, which is just, I think I'm just ready for something different. I really like this role. Just say something like that. Okay, now the final thing that specifically on the data side of this, if you're becoming a data scientist, right? So a lot of people who are applying for data science roles don't have a data science degree. Now, some of you have statistical backgrounds, some of you have physics backgrounds, astronomy backgrounds. You know that many of the techniques that you were using, they're being used in data science in a very applied sense. And you're probably even thinking to yourself, why do I have to go to a boot camp? Why do I have to do METIS? Or why do I have to do any of this? Why do I have to get a certification? Can't I just say I've already done these things? Okay, so you can, but you need to message it in the way that they want to hear. So what you need to say is like, my background in astronomy gave me a very scientific perspective. And I think that a lot of data science today is very push button. It's very rote. everything's about neural networks and machine learning. People don't entirely understand what they're doing. But listen, I understand the math behind it. I've presented my work in journals and academia, so I know how to present results. So I think that actually, I'm a really good fit for this role. And yeah, I think that you want to say something like that. So take your background, take what you want to do and fuse it together. And always remember, bring it back to the value proposition that you can give to your interviewer. So really, I just want to summarize the interview section before I move forward. It really is all about making a connection. It's all about showing how you are valuable to the business. But I also want you to keep in mind, just because they're interested in you doesn't mean you have to be interested in them. It doesn't. So you really need to think hard here as you're selling yourself if this is a place you really want to work. And it's okay if it's not, which is going to bring me to my next section. So in this last section, what I really want you to think about, this last section I should say, is on iteration, right? I really want you to think about the challenges you've had at your business. I like to compare it to a video game. You know that if you've beaten the final boss, right? When you play it again, it's like 30 to 80% easier, and each time it gets easier and easier, which is why the process of iteration is so important. You come from a design background, analyst background, statistical background, you know iteration, you know it very well. So the trick for you is to take that background and apply it here. So what do I mean by iteration? Well, it can be the case that as you try new things, they don't always work, but you need to keep trying them. I helped someone recently who kept getting to the final interview stage and wasn't being offered the role. So first of all, I said, take stock of the fact that you got here and you don't have a traditional background. You beat out many, many other people. So that means that you're doing something very right. So maybe there's just something right at the end that you need to tweak and pay attention to it. So here's what I'll say. Getting a job, depending on where you are in Ohio, I'll be real with you, it was a lot easier for me. I'm actually a freelancer now in New York City because, I tried getting a job. It just takes longer here. So especially here or in a big city where people can just move slower and there's a lot of competition, you need to constantly be iterating. So if something's not working, if you're not getting a lot of responses, that should mean something to you. Don't say, oh, I can't do this, or, it's because of this or that. It just means something isn't working. So take a breath, try some new things, if you've done A/B testing, try A/B testing with your resume. I swear to God, this stuff works. Just as a gardener would take their best crops and then next year use those to make their garden even better, you need to take your best stuff and evolve your work. And I would tell you that it doesn't stop when you get a job. The iteration process keeps continuing. If you see a resume that you really, really like, feel free to take parts of it. I mean, no one has a copyright on resumes, and reuse it. I always constantly keep working on my resumes, so when I am ready to go, I am ready to go. So all of that said, I just want to summarize all these key points with you. All right, so the first thing is you need to be bold and differentiate yourself. You need to have a killer resume, and you need to ace the interview. And finally, you need to iterate until you've found what works. And that process doesn't stop. Keep doing it. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching this video. Did you like it? Did you like my advice? Did you think it was wacky? Let me know down in the comments. Also, check out the video description because I'm going to have a link that's going to give you, that's going to connect you to the resource guide. And I'm also going to have a blog post that's just going to have a few more resources on it for you, including a Medium article I wrote on cover letters in this space. So take a look at that. And then the other thing is, if you like my advice and you want to hire me, just let me know, jordan@excel.tv. But if you're not looking for paid help, but you might be looking to actually get some help, the other thing I want to offer is that if you're out there and you don't mind having the pressure be on the hot seat, I would love to do an episode with folks who give me their resume, and then we work on it together, and we can do it live so that everyone can see and everyone can benefit. So if that's you, just let me know. You can let me know in the comments. You can go to excel.tv, our website, and let us know in the comments there, or you can email me, jordan@exceltv. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. I hope the best for you as in your job search, and wish you the best of luck. Until next time, keep on excelling.